Hey fam, it's your boy Matty. Happy Wednesday. We're only 2 days from the weekend. Congrats on making it here. Let's take a look at the stories that matter and how to make it actionable. And the big one today that was blowing up everywhere, of course, is what happened in Halifax today.
You make my kid! You make the fucking 10-year-old! You fucking liar! You know who I am? You're gonna fucking know me! You make my kid! Fuck you!
So that was a scene out of Halifax today. What essentially was happening is the Halifax Mutual Aid set up a lot of wonderfully crafted shelters for people, for unhoused people. It's a brutal system of housing we have in Canada. It's absolute trash. We've invested less and less in public housing, co-op housing, and it's just kind of become a breeding ground for the vultures and the landlords. And so what groups have gotten together, as you can see in this picture here, they built a lot of these kind of tiny shelters for unhoused people to have some type of safety and security. And there were people out camping in the park. And Halifax had decided, city council decided they were going to crack down on this and fine all the homeless people $300 because homeless people totally have a lot of money to throw away. And they just evicted them from all of the parks. And of course, people with souls and spines stood up to this and said that's bullshit. Especially during COVID and whatnot, we need to have some type of safe space for people. And so they stood up to resist to the police officers, and police officers being state-sponsored terrorism and violence, they just kind of went and lost their minds with their stupid, smooth brains. It was just disgusting to see, and I think that it was just brutal. When I first saw this, one of the first things I did is jumped over to see what was going on with Jay Watts, because Communist Party, say what you will of them, they're always on the front lines. That's what's giving me a lot of respect for them. And he wasn't present himself, but we did have another comrade from the Communist Party out there, Hannah. We'll be talking to her in a day or two here, and she kind of took a look at the situation, what was going on, and this is the aftermath of everything. So after they'd maced children, arrested people, harmed people, kicked out unhoused people for no other purpose than for serving the interests of the wealthy in the city, and allegedly to make things a cleaner, safer public space. They just tore up the houses and left them there because they didn't have space to take them away. That shows how bullshit and empty-hearted and soulless the capitalist class is, and is 1,000% is a class war. It's just gutting to see this. We have saying we're not just spiteful little children, they're spiteful little children that are really deathly afraid of us. Get organized, work with Mutual Aid Halifax, join the Communist Party of Canada, really just get to work. This is class war, and we're starting off outgunned, and it totally 1,000% echo that sentiment. It was brutal, and like that's one of the things, like I'm an anarchist, like ANCOM, and for me to want to engage with the Communist Party, that tells you that, okay, if I'm willing to accept some type of democratic centralism, they've got to be doing good work, and they're always on the front lines. The one thing that you don't typically see is the NDP on the front lines, but I will say big props to Gary Burrill, the new NDP leader of the NDP in Nova Scotia. He actually showed up to an event. Usually it's just the Communist Party and anarchists and some other random groups showing up to support the unhoused, but the NDP are starting to come around. So if we can boost them and say, hey, you need to do this shit too, that would be dope. This video is being shared a lot, so I'll play this video too just so you can see what he says, because you don't typically see the NDP at these events, so this is really heartening.
Horrible situation for us to be the witnesses to here today.
This dude's on top of one.
How sad is that? That for year after year after year, the government of Nova Scotia pays no attention to the housing crisis. And as a result, hundreds of people have to abandon the place where they live, where they're warm and they have a roof, and they have to make the very difficult choice to go and live in a tent or in a shed outside. And we get to that situation and we turn to the government and say, well, what are you going to do to help here? And the government's response is exactly what we're witnesses to here this afternoon. What kind of response is that? What is a fairer thing in the world for any person to say than to say, we want homes, not cops? We want homes, not cops! 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 We want homes, not cops!
So that was super dope to see, because yeah, you don't typically see the NDP there as firebrands, and that was amazing. And I think that really speaks to how important this moment is, and that groups are being aware. Like, good job to the NDP for being present, and they've also talked a lot about rent control and other solutions to the housing crisis, and that's one of the reasons they performed relatively well in the Nova Scotia election. We didn't think they were going to do quite so good, but they actually did decent, so that was nice to see, and I think it's a something that makes top of mind of the things that we can action. And so I think, obviously, echo everything that Hannah says, and we'll talk to her specifically about what we can do to prioritize and why the Communist Party is a good choice. But I think working with mutual aid is always the best thing you can do to build power in your local community. And it's so important. Not just are you building the shelters, but you're getting in touch with the individuals, helping them with finding supplies and having someone to talk to and having that space. There's so many different ways to get engaged with mutual aid, from like food setup, delivery. There's a lot that can be done, and it's desperately needed in every community. So definitely echo that sentiment. The need to work with mutual aid. Join the Communist Party, and totally, they do a lot of good work. They're always on the front lines. And then I think just to kind of try to make it easier as well, is like, we've seen the NDP show up, and that's dope in this one specific scenario. And one thing that I really liked is, so we look at that video, and that was coming from Dylan. He does a lot of incredible work with the Democratic Socialists of Canada. He emailed his councillors and said, "Hi, I wanted to share a video of our fellow NDP member Gary Burrill out fighting for his unhoused neighbors in Halifax in the midst of police brutality today. This is what we need representatives like yourself to get out and do, so I wanted to share this with you. Video link is here. Best." And I love how simple that is, how concise it is. And then I do know he got a positive response from the counselor, and he got some engagement there. And it looks like maybe the counselor is leaning towards it, because you see those numbers, you see the support, you see the people online boosting it. So now they're thinking, okay, maybe I will show up to these future events. And I think it is really important to highlight the good where it exists. And so if you have the time, I definitely recommend seeking out your local counselors, the local people in your the political establishment, and sending them the video saying, this is what you want to see, and this is what you expect to see moving forward, and just as a way to open up some type of friendly conversation about the expectations we have as community members. Dylan does it as a dope person just in general, but he also has some authority behind him as an active person in the political scene with the Democratic Socialists of Canada. And I would say, if you're involved with mutual aid, if you're involved with tenant unions or unions in anything where it has some type of structure to it, see if you can also propose that your group reach out and contact city councillors and just echo support for that. Because as things get worse, as they will do under capitalism, we need to reach out and kind of build those networks of support, so that way the councillors know what our expectations are and that they're going to be acting in favor of us. And if they aren't acting in that favor, then we know to reach out and find new people to replace them. And that's where groups like Horizon Ottawa, and we'll talk to some other groups as well in the coming days here about what specific mutual aid and municipal actions we can take to start building real citizen power at the local level. Because right now we're talking about a federal election and all of that fun and drama, but realistically where we need support the most is out there on the streets. And these were officers out there imposing their will to enforce bylaws which are determined by city council. So we need to start taking over the city councils to ensure it reflects the will of the people. And we talk about land back and all that good stuff. We know that we've got those allies behind us, and we can probably move the dial on federal issues a little bit quicker. So that's a quick summary of what happened today. I will be talking a little bit later tonight as well with Dimitri or Yagtos about some theory and how we can use the theory from Lenin and Marx in the past to be actionable today and make a difference in today's scene. So we'll get into that in a few hours, but I'm going to quickly edit this together and post it. So I'll be seeing you shortly. Thank you so much for making time today. Sitting in love and solidarity, Carmen. Have a great day. Peace. They bullied and oppressed us, but still our union grows. And we're going to find a way, boys, for shorter hours and better pay, boys. Yes, we're going to win the day, boys. Where the Fraser River flows,